Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our ever critical eye over another 10th edition datasheet. And once again, we shall be delving into the murky depths of the Imperial Inquisition. Last time, we looked at Inquisitor Cotes and his big, sexy Thunderhammer. And don't worry if you've not seen that video, I'll make sure there's a link to it at the end of this one. But the overall response to that episode was really positive, and one of the most common comments was, Mordian, please can you take a look at some of the other Inquisitors, especially can you look at career Draxus. So that is who we are going to be getting into today. We're going to be doing a deep dive on the Lord Inquisitor of the Ordo XENOS. And so without further ado, let's not mess around any further. Let's purge some XENOS and dive right into today's episode. As is tradition, let us begin with a brief overview of what the hell this unit actually is. Inquisitor Draxus is a radical Inquisitor, basically the opposite of Cotes, who's extremely straight-edged. Inquisitor Draxus believes in using the XENOS to beat the XENOS, and her number one target, the alien that she hates the most, is the Necrons, and she learned all about these robotic monstrosities from the Eldar, who also helped her hone her psychic abilities. So not only is she a radical in terms of her ways, but she's also a bloody witch using her mind bullets. But who can really blame her? I mean, after all, she's just after what we all want, which is that big titty Eldar girlfriend. But lore and memes aside, how does this model perform on the tabletop? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is to get into the nitty-gritty of the data sheet. And let's start off by taking a look at that stat line. Movement of 6 inches is pretty normal. Toughness 3 does mean that the wounds can be stacked onto her fairly easily, but a 3+ save, 4 wounds, and a 5+ vulnerable save makes her pretty tanky by guard standards. Her 6+ leadership also shouldn't be overlooked, especially in the guard, when your leadership tends to be 7, and that can make it a bit dicey when you have to do leadership tests for battle shock, and that might mean if you fail it, you can't do your orders on that unit, you might not be able to reinforcement that infantry squad that you need to. Having that leadership 6 is quite nice, and considering that it's a rare treat in the guard to have anything that isn't leadership 7, it will actually be quite helpful. On its own, it might seem like a small thing, especially for other non-guard factions, but in the guard, it is actually quite important. And more than once, I have cried out for better leadership, and especially in games when I've needed to use reinforcements or something, or it's cost me a vital CP that I really don't have. I know it seems like I'm labouring the point, and I probably am, but that leadership 6 is actually quite tasty. But moving swiftly on before I spend another 5 minutes talking about why I quite like Leadership 6+, we have got an objective control of 1, which is fine, it's normal. It's a little bit of extra OC in whatever unit is being led by Draxus. Overall, a pretty decent stat line, especially considering that, like many Inquisitors, Draxus can lead not only Inquisitorial henchmen, but also Imperium battle line infantry. So you can put her in units of guardsmen or of Kriegers or Catachans. There's lots of ways that you could use not only her abilities to support the unit, but also the abilities of that unit are going to benefit her as well. For example, if she's in some Catachans and they charge, then she will benefit from the +1 strength and the extra AP. But speaking of strength and AP and doing damage, let's now get into the weapons and war gear. Draxus is equipped with a Dire Singer, Psychic Tempest, and a Power Fist. Now, the Dire Singer is, of course, a XENOS abomination and maximum heresy, but it is also a pretty good weapon. With an 18-inch range, 4 shots, political 3+, strength 4, AP 0, and damage 2, it might look like a fancy shuriken catapult, but it does have a laundry list of special rules to make it quite nice. Anti-infantry 4 plus means that strength of 4 is actually way less limiting than it may seem. Being able to wound even the heaviest of infantry like Terminators and Custodians on a 4 is pretty tasty. You've then got Devastating Wounds, which helps get past the fact it's only AP 0, because if you do a Dev Wound, you're just going to go straight through. And lastly, you've got Damage 2. So even if you're not doing Dev Wounds, if you do get a wound through, you're going to be killing a Marine at a time. And if you do get Dev Wounds, it's going to be pretty nice to be able to take those big chunks of damage out of those tough units with those 2-up saves and stuff like that. Also, it's an assault weapon, which is a rare treat in a guard army, because I think we've basically got no assault anymore. Now that flamers and melters have lost it, we basically don't get to advance and shoot with our guns. Yeah, it's only one person in the unit. Are you going to be advancing just to take advantage of the assault rule? No, because the rest of the unit's not going to be able to shoot. But it is important to know that if you do have Draxus in a unit that is moving and you need to do an advance, maybe a move and advance to get an objective or to move block or something like that, it is good to know that the assault is there so that at least some damage output can come out of the unit. We then get to the Psychic Tempest. This has an 18-inch range, 6 attacks. Whoa, nice. And Ballistic Skill 3 plus at strength 6, AP 0 again, damage 2. So a lot of volume. A lot of volume. Only an 18-inch range, sure, but 10 attacks between this and the Dire Singer, all of which at damage 2. And then you get to, again, the laundry list of rules that this thing has. It's Psychic, which is fine. I tend to find Psychic is actually a bit of a downgrade, because most of the time it doesn't mean anything unless someone's got defense against Psychic. Sustained hits 2, which with the fact that it does 6 shots means statistically you're guaranteed at least 1 6, so you're going to get those sustained hits off. But the big one for me, and what really puts a bit of tickle in my guard pickle, is indirect fire. Now, anything that is artillery or pseudo-artillery gets a big old tick in my book. And that's not only because the guard loves firing at the enemy and them not being able to fire back. I mean, that's just the best way of shooting at people. But in the terrain-heavy boards of the competitive meta, where often you cannot see the enemy before they see you, the guard often gets hit first because, well, apart from with artillery, our infantry units don't really have the same movement as a lot of other units do, and our tanks and stuff like that as well. So you tend to find out those fast-moving factions like Eldar can get the drop on you, and you've got to survive the punch before you punch them back. Well, you know what? With indirect fire, it's just another way of being able to blast the enemy before they get you, and another way of being able to get that first strike in. I know I'm probably gushing over indirect fire a bit much. It's definitely made my eyes light up, I'm not going to deny that. But being able to have an infantry unit that can move forward, have indirect fire, with sustained hits, with damage 2, it's definitely a nice thing to have. Quick yet important side note, I think that Lord Inquisitor Kyria Draxus can benefit from Imperial Guard orders. I'm not 100% certain on this. At best, I'm like 80%. So if you know one way or another, if you can confirm or deny, please let me know down in the comment section. But looking at the voice of the command rules for the guard, it says you have to select an eligible unit. Obviously, if Lord Inquisitor Draxus is in a squad of guardsmen or Kriegers, and that squad of Kriegers is eligible to receive the order of, for example, take aim, then it would mean that she could benefit from it. Because the way take aim is written is improve the ballistic skill characters of ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit by 1. It doesn't say improve the ballistic skill characters of ranged weapons equipped by Astra Militarum models in this unit. So I think that the Kriegers, or just using Kriegers as an example, are eligible to receive the order, and when Draxus is in the unit, that means that she's eligible to be part of the order as well, and that she gets affected by it. But like I said, there could be an FAQ, there could be something where that doesn't work. Let me know down below. But if it does work, and I'm about 80% certain it does mean that all of those shots we were talking about with the Dire Singer and the Psychic Tempest would get to hit on 2s, which is, I like that a lot. But it's not just the shooty that Draxus can do, it's also the punchy, and that is because she has a Power Fist. It has 3 attacks, weapon skill 3 plus, strength 6, AP 2, 2 damage. Now, it's just a bog standard power fist, but it's still pretty punchy. And again, if it benefits from fixed bayonets, it could be hitting on 2s. And being able to put power fists in guard squads is actually quite rare. Outside of your command squads, it's not actually possible. But what you could do, and we're getting kind of crazy with this, but what you could do is have a unit of Cadians with a Cadian command squad attached with Draxus attached as well. You can give your Cadian commander a power fist, and you can give one of the other models in that unit a power fist as well, and then Draxus has a power fist, and in total you're getting, I think, 9 power fist attacks, 9 strength 6 AP 2 damage to attacks in one unit of Cadians. And you wouldn't need to make this like a big 20-man unit. You could just take a 10-man unit, add the Inquisitor on, add the Blob on. You're getting quite a lot of models in there. That's like a 16, 17-man unit right there. And so that's not a bad combat blob at all. By guard standards, that is pretty damn punchy. And not only does this make a nice and thematic, fluffy, or just fun way of being able to bonk people on the head with your big power fist, but it feeds into something we were talking about in the Code TS video. And I appreciate we're talking about Draxus today, but I am sort of linking all the Inquisitors together, and I think it is relevant. It's another way of getting combat guard to work. It's another way of being able to add some more choppy, or in this case, fisty into your guard army. And I'm really interested in making combat guard work, not because I think it's going to be super powerful, but I think it'll be viable and it's fun to be able to fix bayonets and charge forward. And any way that we can get effective combat weapons into the list is valuable. And the list of these effective combat things is now growing. You've got Strachan, naturally, but we've talked about lots of power fists now. We've got Draxus, we've got coaches, we've got tech breach, we've got servitors. There's lots of things you can add onto a guard army to your battle line stuff to make them viable in close combat. And I really like that. So Inquisitor Draxus is another piece of that puzzle. Attention guardsmen, this is an announcement by the Departamento Munitorum. Element Games is an official sponsor of the mordianglorytv channel. They offer up to 20% off Warhammer 40k and 10% off bolt action and other game systems. Use the link down in the description to save money and support the channel. Anyone not using the link will be referred to the local commissariat. Also, don't forget that if you use referral code TIM3921, then you will receive double store credit, saving even more money on your future purchases. That's all for now. Fallout! But wait, there's more, because we have the abilities. First one is Authority of the Inquisition. You'll find this on all the Inquisitors. It means that they can get in transports even if they don't have the right keywords, so that's good. The next one is specific though, and this is XENOS Hunter, and you get to add +1 to your hit rolls in combat and in ranged when you're fighting something that is not Imperium or Chaos, so essentially XENOS. This is nice, but it is situational. You have to bear in mind that whilst Eldar are very popular and Necrons are very much the dominating meta faction right now, their codex seems to be very, very good. There are plenty of tournament factions, plenty of factions you're going to encounter in pickup games or also in the competitive scene that are going to be Imperium or Chaos. Firstly, you've got Space Marines, the most popular faction in the game. There's never been a tournament ever in the history of 40k that hasn't included these things. Might be a slight exaggeration, but you get the point. And Chaos Space Marines are also a very popular faction. That might change. There is rumours around the balanced data slate that some of their janky stuff is going to get fixed. But still, Chaos, it's not just Chaos Space Marines. You've got Chaos Knights as well. And you've got all sorts of things like Death Guard and Thousand Suns. There's lots. And World Eaters. So there's a lot of different non-XENOS factions. So this ability I see as a nice to have. When it comes up, brilliant. Is it like to come up at least once every tournament? Yeah. I think one in 3 or 1 in 5 games you're going to come across XENOS. That's not in doubt, but it's not something you can count on in the majority of your games. But fortunately, there is one last ability which is very much not situational, and that is Psychic Veil. In your command phase, this Psychic can use this ability. If it does, roll d6. On a 1, the Psyker's units of us D3 mortal wounds. Not the Psyker, so some unfortunate sods get their brain melted if Inquisitor Draxus loses concentration for a moment. But if you roll a 2+ until the start of your next command phase, the Psyker's unit can only be selected as the target of ranged attacks if the attacking model is within 18 inches. It's kind of like a weaker pseudo lone operative. I'm not going to lie, if this was 12 inches, it would be S tier and amazing. But with it being 18 inches, it's just pretty bloody good. It depends on what you want to put this on. Having a unit that maybe comes in from outflank, comes in from reserve, and you can use this, it's quite nice. I know some people might be like, but Mordian, if they're in reserve, they can't use the ability. But actually, in 10th edition, you can use abilities whilst you are in reserve. Interestingly, not whilst you're in transports, but whilst you're in street reserve, that's fine. And if you read the wording of this rule, it doesn't say you have to target a unit. You just roll the dice and the unit is affected by it. It's similar to how with Warrior Elite for Kazakin, you don't have to select a unit, the unit in question, the unit itself benefits from that ability. So this does work in reserve as far as I am aware. And what you could do is have a unit that comes in behind enemy lines, maybe in a little corner. If you're facing like an assault army, they might have like moved forward, and so they can't really turn around and start going back the other way. They might try and just blast away your guardsmen with what shooting they've got, because assault armies still do have plenty of shooting. They do use that to soften things up. So coming in from reserve and being like, I'm going to bring my unit of maybe Kazakin in, or my little 10-man guard unit, and we're going to come in, we're going to deploy some teleport homes, and you won't be able to stop us. You won't be able to stop us from them threatening your home objective, because we have got Lone Operative or Psychic Veil off. There's that. That's quite a complicated way of using it. You could naturally just use this to try and protect your units from enemy first turn attacks. Obviously, if the enemy gets first turn, you wouldn't get to use this. But if you get first turn, you can be like, Psychic Veil, yes! There's a lot of different ways you can use this. Potentially, if you're on a flank objective and the enemy has got a lot of indirect fire, Plague Burst Mortars, for example, this would be a great way of being like, no, you're not going to target a unit you can't see and are far away from. You're going to have to come here and get me off the objective the old-fashioned way. I think it's a good ability, but the 18-inch range, like I said, I think that is going to limit it quite a lot, because you're going to find that on the smaller boards of 10th edition 40k, people probably will get within 18 inches of you by sort of turn 2, turn 3. The one way that I can see some people arguing this to be used, but I don't think this is actually going to pan out massively in reality, is, well, you can use it on an objective in your home field, and that will then be Lone Operative. A bit like how Marines have that Psychic Librarian that joins the Eliminators, and then that's Lone Operative. Yes, but the guard doesn't really struggle with holding the home objective, because often you'll have things like Basilisks or Manticores on there, and yes, they can be targeted by the enemy. I found that indirect fire isn't very good at blowing up other vehicles. It can do when it's massed, but typically, indirect fire is strength 8, and so with your Basilisk being like toughness 9, your Manticore being like toughness 10, and both having like a 3-up save and being in cover, you're likely to, even if you start getting into an artillery duel, you're likely to still have your objective for most of the game, just with the stuff that naturally wants to sit back there. The Psychic Veil is good, and I think that you'll definitely have... everyone who has this Inquisitor and has its ability will have a story of when Psychic Veil won them a game, because at that key moment it went off and your opponent's plans got massively scuppered. Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a big deal. But it's certainly also going to have ways for your opponent to counter it. And just getting up close and personal is going to be one way of doing that. But with all of that said, we have covered off Draxus' abilities and some ways that you might want to use the model. But the big question, I guess, is, do we think she's a good model? Is she worth putting in your army? I would say that Draxus is good. Not great, not terrible, not S tier, not shelf tier, just good. I think she falls into that category of models and units which are not necessarily meta, not necessarily hyper competitive, but something that you can include in your army and not feel like you're holding yourself back, not feel like you're handicapping yourself. Now, you've got some units which are just actively bad. and by putting them in your army, it's just a case of you're clearly not, you're just making your list worse. You're probably clearly not playing to win, you're just playing for fun. But I think Draxus is one of those units that you can put in your list and have fun with and get some use out of it every single game and not feel like you are essentially throwing the game for the sake of narrative. Now, you may have noticed that up until this point, I have avoided talking about the points cost of Draxus, and there's a very good reason for that. At the time of recording this video, the balanced data slate is imminently about to drop, and it could affect the points cost of Draxus. What I would say is, at time of recording, she's 75 points, and that's fine. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's similar to Cotiers. In fact, it's exactly the same as Cotiers. I do think that's as much as I would want to spend on the model. I think that ideally, considering that Psychic Veil is 18 inches and that XENOS Hunter is situational, I think bringing her down to more like 60, 65 points, doing the same with Cotiers, would take the model from being nice and cool to actually good and competitive. Possibly, I wouldn't say she's overcosted right now, but she's at the top end of what I think myself and probably many other players are willing to spend on a character like this. But of course, that and everything else in this video is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you like Draxus? Do you not? What do you think is the best aspect about this model? And most interestingly, which unit would you attach her to take maximum advantage of Psychic Veil? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.